created a PeerTube instance and now you're ready to set it up. Are you wondering what the next steps are? Well, today we're going to go through some, not all, of the things that you'll want to do when you got yourself a brand new PeerTube instance. And of course, as always, intrepid robotic consultant Consultatron is on the Fediverse, ready to go with a new video PeerTube instance. So if you're set up with a managed host like FediHost, you'll find yourself with a panel like this, where you get given the root username and the password. So let's jump over and log in there. And once you put your login details in, you'll find yourself sitting on a fresh PeerTube install. You can tell it's fresh because it's in PeerTube Earthy Tones and the username is root. PeerTube is a Fediverse service that kind of prefers you to go and create a separate user if you wish to upload. It likes to have an owner super admin user called root, separate from a user that might upload posts. And you quite often see this if you're out there on the Fediverse. You'll see root at something.com has posted a video. And what's going on there is they've just gone with the default user as the user that they want to create stuff on their instance with. And I think that we can agree, like most people don't want to go around the Fediverse being known as root. So the first thing you want to do is create a new user. And to do that, you head to the overview section and hit create user. This is where I actually think the most confusing thing about the PeerTube system shows up. Especially confusing if you're used to coming from YouTube. So on YouTube, my name is PageMTL, and my channel name is called PageMTL. The problem is PeerTube doesn't let you have a username and a channel name that are the same, because in the implementation of PeerTube on ActivityPub, the user and the channel are both agents. They're both kind of ActivityPub entities out there on the Fediverse. And so they would be kind of clashing with each other. And so you have to have a separate channel name from your username. And I find this is confusing because you're not sure kind of what should be the thing that I'm known as. And the answer to that is your username is the serious thing. And your channel name is almost like a playlist. PeerTube has a kind of fundamental difference to YouTube or Vimeo or most of the other video hosting sites in that it kind of operates almost like a television station. So your username would be like CBC. Canadians will know this is the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation. And your channel name would be like education. And it's a little weird to get your head around this because if you're used to using a like old school social media service, you would never get to have the channel name education. It would have to be like CBC education or something like that. But I'll show you why it is that we do this. You might have like Consultatron, and then you might have the channel name being marketing, right? Or username might be just video. Like if you plan on being a single user instance where there really isn't anything else there, maybe the username would just be video, to make it really clear what something is, and the channel name, marketing. So we have a look at FediHost. It's kind of set up the way that I think things should be. So you have the main account, which is just, FediHost video. It could be video at FediHost or FediHost at video.FediHost or whatever you want. And then you have the different channels under it. So you have podcast at video.FediHost, explainers at video.FediHost, and news at video.FediHost. The reason for this is the user account. That is where the videos actually come out. Whereas the channels, those are reposters or playlists of videos. I'll show you on ActivityPub how this looks. So if I go to FediHost at video.FediHost.co, here it is. So this is what it looks like to ActivityPub. All of the things are posted here. If you want to see everything that FediHost makes, you follow this user channel. The channels, though, they show up like this. And you can see explainers, for example, what it's doing is it's boosting the user FediHost at video.FediHost's videos. So the channel is just boosting it. And really what I kind of want to say to people is just follow the user. If you like all of the things that FediHost makes, you can follow that. You can kind of think of it like a broadcaster. So if CBC was the username, news would be the channel name. And so people can choose. If they really like CBC, they can watch the news, they can watch the docs, they can watch the sports. But chances are a lot of people, they just want to see, one or two of the channels. So that's kind of a mindset of a structure of PeerTube. That seems to be what they're going for. So in the case of Consultatron, you're basically looking at the domain name, video.consultatron.com, and you're deciding, what username makes sense, what channel name makes sense. Unfortunately, I find the username for the single user instances is a bit redundant. It's a bit like Fedihost. It's called fedihost@video.fedihost.co. You're kind of a little bit stuck with that on a single user instance, but whatever. I'd say in this case, video@video.consultatron.com, probably the best thing to use. And then the channel name, it's just a first channel. You know, you need to have like a default channel. And so in this case, Consultatron might have a marketing channel. You know, so marketing@video.consultatron.com kind of makes sense exactly what that would be. We can set up the email. So this would just be video@consultatron.com. I'm going to set this user up as an administrator and create this user. And when you log in for the first time, you get given this panel. Welcome to PeerTube. And it reminds you to configure your instance. So let's get this user set up in a kind of basic way. The first thing that you'll want to have is your profile settings. And I recommend getting this right because it kind of sucks to have your PeerTube instance pushing stuff out into the Fediverse without a profile picture attached. It makes you look kind of crappy. You need a 192 by 192 pixel image here. So I'll just upload that. Your display name for your main user account, video. Those are just the basic things for now, just because you want to make sure as soon as possible that your profile picture and everything is set so that stuff, when it does get uploaded, goes out with an actual, you know, profile picture image attached to it. So those are just the bare minimum account related things that I'd make sure I took care of. Set yourself up with a user that's not called root and make sure that you've got yourself a profile picture, a display name, and a description, because those are the things that first and foremost ActivityPub is going to see. And if you publish anything, you're going to want to make sure that those things are all in order. All right, so now we can get into the actual kind of instance configuration stuff. So if you see in the sidebar here, you have the kind of stuff related to you as a user, and then you have down here the stuff related to you as an admin of an instance. So let's first have a look at the homepage. And I think that this is a thing which can be a little bit confusing. Here we have the very first setting inside the admin menu homepage. And you would assume, I think, that if you click on the little house, it's going to take you to the homepage. But instead, it's taking you here to browse videos. Why is that? Well, it's because inside settings, basic, there is a preference here for what to show as the landing page. So the landing page is basically the default page of your website. And for us, the default page is browse all videos, which is why when you click here, you get browse videos. What the home page is almost like custom landing page. It lets you define a kind of custom page as the default page of the website. If this is left blank, there is no home page. When we click on home, we're being sent to browse videos. But look what happens if we type something in here. So if I type into here, hi, welcome to PeerTube for Consultatron. If I click this and then update the configuration, look what happens when I go back here. There's this new tab called Home, and there's the text we just typed in. The thing is, when we click Home, or if we say go to the video.consultatron.com route and hit enter, we're still being sent to browse videos. And you may have guessed, if you're used to content management systems, what you have to do is go back to that basic setting where it says landing page, click on the drop down and choose this now visible home option, and then update the configuration. And that updates PeerTube so that your homepage is your homepage. Now, if you click on home, boom, you're taken to home. That setting can take a moment to toggle, I found. So give it a second if it hasn't done it immediately. Now, of course, this is a pretty crappy homepage. For that reason, I recommend actually for most people just using one of these options. One of these two is a pretty good option. This will show all of the videos that your instance has on it, as well as instances that your instance follows. And this one will just kind of feature on your homepage your local instance's videos. However, if you want to make a snazzy homepage, you can do that by using the custom PeerTube HTML tags. If you open this up, you'll get this set of instructions on how to kind of make a custom homepage that features selections of videos and buttons and all that sort of stuff. If you've coded in HTML or you have any programming experience, you won't find this hard to do. You can have a feature video, you can have sections with local videos and then another section with videos from other servers, and you can put headings in and name them and all that sort of stuff. I'm going to go and grab the instance banner option. Seeing as I'm showing you kind of how to do it, I'm just going to put in a few things which I've used before. The PeerTube instance banner is one. And then I'm just going to grab one of their examples of like a list of videos. So here's an example here. So I'm going to have the banner, and I'm going to have welcome to Consultatron. And I'll just grab a list of videos to chuck in. So video list. So here's a kind of basic example of a local video list. And then I'm just going to update configuration. And if we click on the home page, we'll see nothing because we have neither a banner or videos. And we're going to remedy that with the next thing. Clicking on information here. This is an icon that can be used for the homepage if we want. It's kind of a field like this, PeerTube instance banner. I'm not using it at the moment, but we could. So we'll upload an icon there. So it's good to go. We'll upload a banner. You'll notice here the resolution for the banner is quite odd. It's 1920 by 317 pixels. So I've created a banner to precisely that resolution. So that's there now. Now, if I hit update configuration and we jump back to the homepage, boom, Consultatron, it's there. So we've got one thing there, which is nice. Big, bold Consultatron. Now let's have a look at some of the other things. I think these are fairly self-explanatory and you can figure out what they do from trial and error. Like PeerTube, what that is the name in the title here. It'll be the name that shows in like Google, Google's kind of search results. You might want to have Consultatron PeerTube. I think I'm going to go with Consultatube. Short description, Consultatron videos and video related consulting. So main instance categories. This is one thing that's a little mystifying. Basically, when you go to upload a video, you can choose what categories you want to put it under. So this is actually fairly important. So I would say that Consultatron is in the education industry and maybe the how to. These fields are fairly obvious, but I'll just point this out. With PeerTube, your instance or users on your instance may choose to follow accounts that are on other PeerTube instances. And, you know, PeerTube being a creation of human beings has some interesting stuff on it that you may not want to show on your instance. Now, you can defederate or not show that content at all, but you may kind of be in more of a gray area where you don't mind showing it on your instance, but you do want to give people fair warning that they're in for an experience. So in this case, you might choose to hide or blur the thumbnails or whatever, you know. For Consultatron, I'm going to hide because let's assume Consultatron is a business. There's no way that it wants to accidentally show anything that's not safe for work. These fields, terms, code of conduct, more relevant if you're going to have other people's videos being hosted. You're going to have other user accounts. You'll want to fill these in. These are all fairly obvious. This field's quite useful to fill in if you're hosting it on your own VPS, just because the Fediverse and PeerTube is quite resource intensive when encoding videos. So it's quite helpful to let people know how you're achieving things with your instance. So we'll hit update configuration and then jump on over to the basic settings. We've already covered the landing page and the home. The theme here is an interesting one. If you have this option, it will automatically change the color depending on the time of day. I've got to say that for me, the light option would work better with the Consultatron banner. It is a on light kind of banner, so I'm going to force it into light so that it stays looking as I expect. You can choose what the algorithm will be if you have a browse option set up for the local videos. I think that recent views is probably the best algorithm to use, but you can do most liked, you can do hot. I'll let you fiddle around with those. Scrolling down is probably one of the more major settings. Do you want to have signups? Now, I would recommend against this if you're a new instance, especially where you're just getting things up and running. It's the same with Mastodon. It's kind of good to have a kind of invite-only approach where you let in a few people, test it out, make sure you know the ropes before you open the floodgates. Enabling sign-up, as it says here, like it really does require a lot of attention and extra moderation. And some of these settings, when we first created FediHost, we went and kind of overrid the defaults. And I think this was one of the things where accidentally I had left signups enabled and I encountered this issue. What happens is people come to the PeerTube instance and they see a video and they go, oh, I want to write a comment. And they go to write a comment. So if we're over here on like FediHost, they're watching a video and they go, oh, I'd like to write a comment. So they jump down in the comment section and try to write a comment, but they can't because they don't have an account on this particular PeerTube instance. And what I found is people were creating accounts on my PeerTube instance just to write a comment. And realized pretty quickly that the best way to do things is to push people to using their Mastodon account or their PixelFed account or whatever to write the comments. So most of these accounts, or most of the time when I'm interacting with a PeerTube video, I'm using ActivityPub. I'm making use of that protocol to write comments. So what you really want them to do is head over to their Mastodon account or whatever they're using as their daily Fediverse account. You want them to head over there using this box to have the interaction with the video. And then you want them to follow the PeerTube user from Mastodon so that on all future videos, it's as simple as interacting with it inside the Mastodon interface. You see this video over in Mastodon, when you open it up, you can see, the interactions that I've been having with these people who are using their Mastodon accounts. Like this is a Mastodon account, for example. When you open it inside PeerTube, you can see these interactions below it, right? So this guy here, Dave, he's doing it correctly. He's interacting with the PeerTube instance from Mastodon. For your casual users, unless they're really involved in PeerTube, that's the best way to do it. So I disable user signups for that reason, but then there's the obvious reasons to disable user signups. If you enable signups, users can upload videos, and then you're paying for the data that those uploaded videos use, and you're having to moderate them. And in the end, you kind of want to really carefully gatekeep. Unlike, say, signups on Mastodon, signups on PeerTube could be a problem. You probably want to know who that person is. You want to kind of carefully make sure that they're cool. You might want to have some sort of an intake process where they fill out a form and, agree to certain terms and all that sort of stuff. Anyway, for that reason, for sure, if you're just starting the instance out, you want it off. It might be a setting that you keep off for good. In this section, videos here, this is for importing of videos from YouTube primarily. So you can set it up, and I've done this for Canadian Civil. It automatically imports the YouTube channel of the people who upload first and foremost to YouTube. It just pulls it in and re-encodes it and puts it up on PeerTube. Basically, it's a mirror. The default settings for this are best to stick with. You don't want to have too many jobs in parallel, otherwise YouTube will get freaked out about what the hell's going on. Going down a little bit, another setting that's good to consider is federation. This is important. This setting here, other instances can follow yours. The Fediverse being new, a lot of people don't understand what it means to have a video federated. So say Consultatron publishes a video that's a product demonstration. They may not want that video of a product demonstration being placed on a separate PeerTube instance with lots of weird stuff around it, right? So other instances can follow your instance, and they basically pipe your videos out on their instance to their user base or to anyone who visits that website. So for example, if I go to urbanists.video, this is a PeerTube instance for urbanists, and you'll see over here that there's lots and lots of videos that are actually originally from Canadian Civil, because a lot of the people on Canadian Civil do urbanism. And if I go to this and I click on view account, you'll see that it's reese@video.canadiancivil.com. So the good thing about this is it's helping you get your videos shared. The user base of urbanist.videos is being sent all the videos that are on Canadian Civil. So you get to have more views and you get to spread the word. But the downside is you might not want this, So urbanist.videos, these guys are great. Going to their website, scrolling down and seeing one of my friend's videos on a train seems like a good fit, no problem there. But you might also get followed by Nazis.video or something that you don't want your videos showing on. I have a feeling over time that this will become less of a problem as people understand the nature of a Fediverse and what it is. Just like posting a link to something on Twitter isn't necessarily an endorsement. Having an instance follow you doesn't mean that it's an endorsement either. It's just a link. But because of how the Fediverse tightly integrates things like this, it can be hard for people to realize what they're looking at, And in fact, I think I probably need to make clear to some of the other people on Canadian Civil that these videos haven't been stolen and placed somewhere, that this is actually originally hosted on Canadian Civil, and this is all part of how it works, So that's another thing you might need to explain to your users. So scrolling down to the bottom here, we have one of the stranger settings, the Twitter/X username. And it's by default set to Chocoboz, which is the French developer who has built the vast majority of this platform. So it's a configuration variable that's required by Twitter, but I've noticed, unfortunately, that some things pass your videos, even in ActivityPub, with this name there. So for a while, like FediHost had Chocoboz as the user name showing up in some places. And I was like, where is this coming from? And it's coming from the setting. Now, I don't know if that was a temporary bug, but given that I really don't care about Twitter, so I just put in my Mastodon handle in here usually, and honestly it's never caused any problems. Anyway, jumping over to transcoding. This whole section I've covered in another tutorial on Mastodon storage because there's a fair amount to it and it's a very critical section, but I can go through the basics. When a video gets uploaded, it gets transcoded into the different resolutions that a viewer may opt to watch the video in. The settings here are the default settings that we use with FediHost. This page is very critical mainly for your data usage. We recommend, and PeerTube recommends, HLS videos. Web videos are seemingly on the out as far as what PeerTube supports. So if you have both, you're going to double the amount of storage you use. Just having one seems like the way to go. Then you can choose the resolutions that you want. If you want to have less storage used, use less resolutions, use lower resolutions. So you might go, oh, okay, well, we can go for 720 and 240. If you want to really reduce your costs, like it's very, very cheap to host videos at a very low resolution. I don't think I'd want to go any lower than 720, to be honest. But I think like a 180 and a 480, that's pretty good for acceptable. Then you have two different streaming options, 480, that's nice for people on slower internet connections, and 1080, it's not a very big video file overall, but looks pretty good on a larger screen. And then of course you can go all the way up. So there's your options there. The remote runners, if you're watching this and you're not using FediHost, don't worry about that setting. This setting is enabled on FediHost because we have a dedicated encoding server, but typically you'd be just running that off your own machine. Live streaming is quite similar to the Video Studio in that you don't want these settings enabled on lower spec machines. This PeerTube instance, ConsultaTube, is running on the cheapest plan that FediHost offers. So it doesn't support live streaming and it doesn't support the Video Studio. If you want to do those, you're going to have a more powerful instance. So don't enable them unless you have that. Otherwise, you're going to run into some problems. And in the case of FediHost, if you enable this, it will reset the setting back if you try it, because this is a basic plan. Of course, if you're on FediHost and you want to upgrade, you just need to choose a plan that supports Video Studio, like PeerTube 20 here, or in this case, a concurrent live stream that's on PeerTube 30. But as you can see, it's a much more expensive thing to do because you need a lot of power to do that on your machine. So then jumping over to advanced, here are two fields that are sometimes useful, CSS and JavaScript. For all those web developers out there, you can do some tweaks. This is for minor tweaks. If you want to do major tweaks, you want to create a custom theme. If you want to hide a detail on the site or change the background color or something like that, you can do a little CSS override in here. So any kids who grew up in the 90s when HTML was just a little baby will enjoy being able to change the color of headings to aqua. So the next section and the next thing you might want to do is federate with someone. And I think it makes a lot of sense for us to federate with FediHost. So you can choose if you want to federate with an entire instance, if you want to federate with a specific user, if you want to federate with a specific channel. So for us, I think we'll federate with the video.fedihost instance and hit follow. Some other instances will have these settings here toggled, so they require manual approval of new followers. So over in the federation page, sometimes you wait for a while for it to be accepted, especially if you're a new instance. But FediHost doesn't have that setting toggled on, so it was immediately accepted. And it's kind of cool if you go over here and click Browse Videos, you'll see immediately that we have all of the FediHost videos over here. So ConsultaTube is basically just a mirror of a FediHost PeerTube instance. Don't forget to subscribe, by the way. Then if we go over to plugins and themes, this is kind of the last major thing that you'll want to configure. So FediHost has a couple of default plugins that we install because they're a good idea to have. One is upload instructions and the other is a simple logo. So the upload instructions, this is just to kind of remind people that PeerTube is not YouTube. You can't just throw 100 gigabyte file at a basic server and expect that to go well. So we're trying to do people a favor here by having this kind of default message that says like, if your file is bigger than 2 gigabytes, like you're going to have a bad time. You can pay for a really, really expensive instance, but I think a lot of people buy a very cheap instance and then they try to put very large files into it and run into problems. So this is kind of an upload instruction that's just universally a good idea. So what this does is if I go over here, click here, we'll see that text. Just reminding people, keep in mind, 2 gigabytes is quite a big file. The other thing is simple logo. So simple logo there, choosing settings, you can choose the URL for the icon there and the favicon, which is what shows up here. So unfortunately, you can't upload this to the site, which is a little annoying, but you can put in the icon URL. All right, so that'll update the icon over there and the favicon over here. So there are some other plugins that you might want to use. These are more relevant to, if you want to have live chat during streams. That's one that's quite useful. You can see the official ones here, which I would recommend sticking with generally, unless you are fairly familiar with it. You can see the kind of recommended and official plugins. It's definitely a good thing to look for, because I have found that some of the plugins get somewhat abandoned or break when there's an upgrade. There's kind of no promise that it will keep working. You've got all sorts of plugins in here, and often you'll find if there's something that you're missing, you'll be able to get it here. Google Analytics is a good example of one that's kind of useful, because it's hard to tell who's actually on your instance. All sorts of little helpful things. Have a look through and fiddle around and see how they work. Just keep in mind with plugins that they can be a source of instability and bugs on your instance, especially if they're not official or recommended plugins. And those bugs and glitches, it can be really hard to remember, oh, this might be caused by a plugin, especially if you're using managed hosting where you're not getting fed all of the logs from the server and all this information. If you do encounter any kind of stability or performance issues with your PeerTube instance, I highly recommend coming in here and disabling any plugins that aren't official ones or recommended ones from the folks that make PeerTube. Themes is a fairly similar deal. There's lots of different themes. Some of them are doing a great job of implementing everything and are up to date. Others are somewhat deprecated or don't actually work very well. So, you can, especially when your instance is new, try installing some and seeing if they work. So you'll see if you go and click install on one of these themes, there'll be this little note here warning you that, you could be in for a rough ride. If you install a theme and it's broken, it may be really hard to get back to this page and even disable it. So if you're interested in a theme, the first thing I'd do is see these 2 icons here, click on them and have a look at the source. And if you get a 404, it's a pretty good sign that this isn't supported anymore. So we have a look at this one over here. I click on here, it's a 404 for the GitHub page. So it's probably not up to date anymore, and you're going to have a bad time if you try to install it. This, for example, is 5 years old. PeerTube has changed a lot in 5 years, and it's really unlikely that theme is going to work. However, if I click over here on the official theme, you'll see this repository last updated 2 months ago. Here's our buddy Chocoboz, who's the primary coder on PeerTube. So you can be sure that this is working well. And if you want to create a theme, you can. Probably not a bad idea to grab something like the dark theme and then make some alterations to it. But that's something for another day. So that brings us to the end of a fairly long tutorial on how to set up a PeerTube instance. There's plenty of other things to do and to talk about, but those are the basics. From here, you'll want to start uploading videos and then probably do some tweaks based on your experience. Having a look at the homepage and deciding, does this look the way that I want it to look? And as your instance grows, you're going to have to deal with more things like moderation and making decisions over whether you want to have user sign up or not. But for now, this is a pretty good basic configuration for a single user PeerTube instance or a group of people that you trust and know. There's a lot more to PeerTube than what we've covered today, but hopefully this is enough to get you up and running and get your first few videos shared on the Fediverse.